Did you guys actually expect for the electors to break ranks?
Not in a million years, no. It's just not the way it works. In fact, I think some states actually have laws that don't allow the electors to break. Don't they? In Maine and I think Massachusetts, perhaps, there are actually laws that prevent people from being a faithless elector. And on top of that, it would be bad politics and it wouldn't work. So I just couldn't imagine. It was such a far-fetched idea to begin with, and people had so many of their hopes and dreams resting on that, and I just thought it was really ill-conceived.
Well, yeah. Okay, so about half of the states in the United States of America have laws on the books that are theoretically meant to prevent faithless electors from breaking ranks and casting their vote for another person other than who won that state's electoral votes. But in most cases, in most of these states, the penalty is incredibly minor, ranging from about $1,000 fine to probation to mostly just fine. So there is no one would go to jail for this. There would just be a very small penalty. And I think one state, it might be Maine, simply strips the electoral of their vote and gives it to someone else. So it wasn't going to happen. It simply wasn't going to happen.
I want to point out something. Let's think about. I agree that it probably wouldn't have happened, but let's think about what would it mean if it did happen. Like, I think it's very important to think about that. So what you would have is somebody who won the election under the rules that the election is currently held under, that will not be allowed to sit based on what? Based on the manufactured opinions of people who lost, right? So, like, what does that mean? Let's say we got a person that we wanted in there and the business community didn't want them. Does that mean they don't get elected because the electors can just overturn that? Are you going to set a precedent where the people who lost the election can still get their guy in because, through whatever mechanism? That's really not how it works. If you're advocating for that, it's a double-edged sword, and it really will come back to bite us in the future. So I don't think that that's something that people should be advocating for at all.
And that's
no matter the consequence.
Well, I think there were two arguments in favor of this, like the faithless elector or Hamilton elector phenomenon. A was that and I think both of them were kind of contradictory. So one argument was a-democratic and the other argument was very democratic. So they kind of just flip-flop on one side. So one side was saying that since she won the popular vote, the Electoral College should be abolished anyway because it's an inherently anti-democratic part of our democracy or republic, of our government. That's a fair point. A point that was made 16 years ago and probably should have been taken seriously then, but a fair point nonetheless. And the other side of that argument was the sort of Hamilton elector part of the argument who claimed that the Electoral College is meant to prevent from becoming the president of the United States, regardless of democratic will. So you have two different arguments, both sort of contradicting one another, if that makes sense. But Katie wanted to say something.
I was just going to say that Nick's point as to what would be the downfall that would happen after something like this if it did succeed. I think that's the reason why it would never succeed. I think people do think it would set a really dangerous precedent to have the democratically elected president-elect be overthrown basically by a coup of the Electoral College. I think it would be so immeasurably damaging that I think it would actually be more damaging than 4 years of a Trump presidency, and that's just my opinion. But
yeah, it would almost downgrade us all the way down to like banana republic status, where you can just have a democratically elected president removed and somebody who's never been elected be installed to run the government. Well, we basically turned to Brazil overnight.
Let's talk about the numbers real quick. So we had a grand total of 7 faithless electors during this particular election, 2 from Donald Trump and 5 from Hillary Clinton. 3 of Clinton's electors voted for Colin Powell, 1 for Native American activist Faith Spotted Eagle, and 1 Hawaii elector voted for Bernie Sanders, while 2 of Donald Trump's voted for John Kasich and the other voted for Ron Paul. I think both of those were from Texas. Yes, both from Texas. This was obviously a plan amongst Democrats to get Trump not elected. And in the end, it seems that more Democratic electors flipped the script than Republican electors did. So is that irony? I thought it was worth mentioning. So you were going to say something, Nick?
No, I mean, to me, this is almost a non-story. It literally, like I read it for a second and I just instantly discarded it as not important. If you want to change the Electoral College, that's fine, but you have to change that before the election. You can't all of a sudden complain about the Electoral College after you've lost, because then you're just a loser complaining about that you lost in.
Especially since right before the election, you had all of the Hillary Clinton surrogates all over the news trying to do like a pre-damage control, like, she's going to win, and Trump voters don't have anything to say about it because it's a legitimate election. As you remember, the Trump voters were all trying to kind of delegitimize her win before the election. And Hillary Clinton voters were trying to, say, oh, no, it's all legitimate. There's nothing untoward going on here. And then all of a sudden, as soon as Trump won, they did exactly what the Trump voters were threatening to do before the election. So it just revealed itself to be such obvious partisan politicking. It's kind of horrendous, and it backfired badly.
Of course. But this is part of there's 2 points to engage with here. First, this is part of a very wide trend of only having a problem with things once they're to your disadvantage, but not having a problem with them when you are winning because of them. So the same problems that existed in the primary existed during the election. The voter suppression, the machines failing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when they were benefiting Clinton, it didn't matter. But now that it may have cost her key races, although I don't believe that, it does matter. And the second thing to mention here is that a big popular vote win was part of her strategy. So they took money out of certain places, your Wisconsin, your Michigans, your sort of key battleground states, and flooded that money into cities to win more popular vote. And apparently they forgot how American election is decided, because that's just not how you win.
Well, I think we can't draw too much into like the campaign tactics and what this did and what that did, because in all honesty, without an accurate vote count, which we don't have in America, without a verifiable vote count, which we don't have in America, it's really hard to kind of draw too many conclusions from the actual outcome, right?
But we do have the gist.
All we know, she may very well have won, or she may very well have lost. It's hard to say. But what I will say, though, is the outcome that is being basically held up as the legitimate outcome is definitely not the one that they expected.
Oh, definitely. And this was a Hail Mary pass. This was a Hail Mary pass for the people who just can't seem to get over the fact that Trump won the election based on the rules and standards and structure that we have, which, as problematic as people have been shouting about for the past 2 decades or so, people defended up until the point it was to their disadvantage. And 2, I kind of just want us to move on to bigger and better things than trying to prevent this from occurring. For a variety of reasons. The first reason is simply that it's this is a fool's errand of the entitled mind that would rather change the entire nature of reality and the structure of our democracy and all these things than accept the fact that Clinton lost. And 2, I guess I would feel worse for Clinton's loss. I'd feel worse for America if the Clinton campaign had some kind of answer to Trumpism, which they didn't. The Clinton campaign had no answer to Trumpism. They had an alternative to Trump, which is not the same thing.